So I'm recording this in April of 2021, and the feds are reporting that this year we had an inflation rate of 2-3%, and actually sometimes they claim it's too low and they need to cause even more inflation. I really challenge anybody to find something they could buy right now, the exact same product, for 2 or 3% more than they could last year. I mentioned in a previous video, it's actually very hard to find a product that you could find last year, the exact same one. The same size, the same ingredients, the same active ingredients. I wish I had taken pictures of products. I've been starting to take pictures more because I want to show people it's not just the size. A lot of people have this concept of shrinkflation where packages get smaller while the price stays the same. Lately, I've come up with my own word for this. I call it multiflation, when at the same time that prices are going up, packages are getting smaller and the ingredients are being substituted, among other things. Service quality is getting lower, right? Oftentimes they need to increase prices on multiple fronts just to keep up with inflation. I call it multiflation. I encourage you to use that word more. I haven't seen it online. But I thought I would show how they managed to claim a 2% inflation rate by showing some of the methodologies that even the BLS, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, admits to using. One of the most egregious is the substitution rule. So the price of something goes up a lot, right? And they assume that people will substitute, right? The price of melatonin sleep aid goes up, people will start to take prescription sleep aids instead, right? Obviously not everybody can do that. The other problem is that it assumes that people will get the same satisfaction out of the substitution, and it assumes that we'll never want to substitute back, right? 2020 has been a perfect year for this. Let me give you an example. So, prior to the pandemic, I used to love to take vacations to Gdansk Bay, Poland, right? I love the beach there. I like the scenery there, and just take my mind off of things back home, right? Obviously, this past year, I had to substitute, right? And instead of going to Gdansk, I got over my social anxiety problems. I took up bowling, right? So according to the CPI, the price increases of going to Gdansk don't matter anymore, right? And in fact, going bowling is probably cheaper now than it was a year ago because, a lot of people don't want to do it, right? And going to Gdansk, the cost of Polish currency has gone up, obviously. The airfare might not be so bad, but once you get to Poland, you got to quarantine for 2 weeks, right? The cost of doing that might not be so bad in terms of financial costs. I mean, Poland is very cheap. It's costly in terms of human costs, and especially if you don't have if you don't have a job you can do remotely, that's going to have a huge human cost, right? And the BLS doesn't care, right? They think you're going to substitute that away. What they forget is that at the end of COVID-19, people are not going to think that it's so cool to go bowling every year instead of going on vacation, right? It was a good opportunity to meet local people during a crisis year, but that's a very seasonal matter, right? Now, the other thing they love to do is you got a basket of goods that you're measuring the price of. Now, there are a lot of things you can buy today that you can't buy 50 years ago, and vice versa, right? So the computer that I'm using, the camera that I'm using to record this video, none of that existed even 10 years ago, right? Other things that were of much lesser quality did, right? And they'll make an adjustment for that. The problem is, tell me the last time you went on eBay and bought a 20-year-old cell phone, and you picked it up and you were able to call your friend who has a more modern cell phone, right? So, does it still apply that you can buy a phone that's 20 times bigger in terms of memory? If you can't even use the old phone. If you could use the old phone, that might make sense, right? You would just compare the old phone now to the price it was 20 years ago. Even then, if nobody's making it, you can't buy a new phone with the capacity of 20 years ago, right? Now, a lot of cars have improved a lot, right? But obviously there are a lot of cars that aren't legal to make anymore, right? Cars are required to have airbags nowadays, right? Some of them even are required to have dash cams. And obviously, once we have self-driving cars, the cars that you're driving today might not even be compatible anymore, right? Now, here's a funny one. I happened to take a quick peek at all the items on there. There's a lot of clothing items. Now, this past year, for somebody like me, I've been working remotely. My clothing thoughts on clothing have been very different, right? I probably haven't been dry cleaning things nearly as much. And the other thing that sticks out is that a lot of people, unfortunately, are gaining a lot of weight over this past year. That's kind of unfortunate, which means that by next year they'll be buying bigger clothing items, and the BOS almost certainly is going to take advantage of that, right? The average shirt is now 20% bigger, therefore we get to hedonically adjust, right? What they forget is that eventually people will probably want to lose weight. Eventually people will have to lose weight. Eventually COVID-19 is going to resolve itself. People will want to go back to Poland, right? I'm sure they'll come up with a very different tune once that happens, right? They'll find another way to adjust that out, right? People are crazy for wanting to go to Poland. They're crazy for losing weight. You know, the fact that the shirts are getting smaller, you know, that's also a good thing, right? And so we get to hedonically adjust even more, right?